Alright guys, you saw the thumbnail of this video. It's time for my most awaited video. It's time for me to do a tutorial in Dummynation. Yippee! Anyways guys, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and subs. That would really help the channel a ton. Don't forget to comment down below like anything you may want to help me with. And without further ado, let's honestly just get into the video. And by the way guys, I just want to show you guys like all my score really quickly. So anyways guys, now this tutorial is coming from someone that I personally see myself as a sort of expert at the game. So I guess I'll just try to help you learn the game properly and like kind of all the tricks there are. Okay guys, so let's just start off with the easiest nation in the game. Don't get fooled by the game's rating. It does put China as easier, but really it's the US that's far easier. So listen guys, okay, now let's just wait for a moment, and this is what I want to show you guys. So basically, when you start off in the game, by the way guys, this is a total tutorial, like in case you don't even know about the game, like let's say you just found it. Now, number one, if it's a little difficult to hear my voice because of the music, just turn on captions. And now guys, let's really get in this. So basically, you have this thing called your ideology. You have multiple different ideologies that you can swap to, and they all have different benefits. For example, with democracy, you get some extra money, you get some like economic what's it called again? Like economic, wait, let me see it in the R&D really quickly. Oh yeah, self-sufficient economy. Okay, so, like see, you can also see that you also get self-sufficiency, and you also get cash. And for example, guys, let's say we crash these totally low, like to zero. Yeah, you get more. However, you probably don't want to crash these things to total zero because they do actually give you a benefit. For example, the first thing, Liberator, literally allows you to take a nation, have far less rebels if their political freedom is less than half. And this one also just allows it that when you're getting invaded, there will be far more people like doing an uprising to protect your nation. So yeah, overall, democracy is a pretty good ideology, and I use it in most of my videos anyways. Autocracy, now, it can decrease the maintenance cost of your army up to 80%, and obviously you should pick democracy instead of autocracy. Like, for example, guys, let's say we swapped to total 0% with both of them, okay? Now, here are the benefits you are going to get. 10% like extra diplomacy with the world, so the world will like you more. 40% extra self-sufficient economy, and 20% extra cash that you're going to make. Now with autocracy, you're just going to make a little bit more cash. But now guys, let me show you something. So what this does, guys, basically is that makes the cost of your army decrease up to 80%. However, there is a downside. You will lose some money, and your army will get slightly weaker, but it's really not that by that much. And martial law also makes it, guys, that when you're invading a nation, it can also just decrease like how likely it is that an army will appear and try to stop you. So yeah, you can just do that. Although if you raise that to maximum, your army is going to decrease by strength by 20%, and your cash is going to crash by 90%. Or in other words, it's a really bad idea to make this go really high. Usually I don't really use autocracy, but if I were to use it, I'd probably just set it like this. I mean, I don't really see the use of martial law. Maybe a little bit, but yeah, honestly, yeah, I kind of just say it to this. I think it's good. But anything, okay, I think, like, this is good. But anything more than this, and I feel you're kind of overdoing it. Anyways, guys, now let's look at communism. Now, it's an ideology that I have used a few times, and what this ideology does is that basically it can either just allow you to get far more troops more quickly, or you can just raise the ability to have your expenditure more used. Like, for example, guys, let's say that I increase the expenditure, although we haven't talked about it yet. Wait. Okay, yeah, swap to communism really quickly by accident. Let's just swap back. So basically, guys, here's what the expenditure is. You see this? Like, basically, guys, social spending, we can crash it to 40%, R&D 20, military spending 34.9, liquidity fund 40%. Now, I will get into this later, but basically it will allow us, like, for example, instead of going to 40%, we can raise it to maybe, like, 50. Like, basically just 20% more. Otherwise, but besides that, it's really not that useful, and I really don't see a use to it. Now, guys, let's talk about the only ideology in the game that I believe is totally useless. Theocracy. So basically, guys, with a theocracy, you just lose R&D points, which I will get into later, and you just lose money. And the only thing that really happens is that you can make your army a little stronger with this, and you can also just raise your population a little bit. But honestly, I'd say it's definitely not worth it. Like, it's really not worth it. And finally, we have the last ideology, fascism. Now, you definitely don't want this ideology in the beginning of the game because everyone will hate you very quickly. As we can see, the downsides are money, like the cash, and the diplomacy. Everyone will hate you. Like, literally everyone will hate you in the game. So, Blitzkrieg, what it allows you to do is that it allows you just to invade nations 150% faster. So yeah, it helps a lot in that regard. And exploitation literally allows you to buy things up to 50% cheaper. But you literally lose so much diplomacy points, and you lose 90% of your cash. That's definitely not worth going full fascism. And usually, guys, in my runs, I never start off with fascism unless I'm doing a challenge. What I'd like to do most of the time is that, let's say I'm in a position where my status in the game is so powerful that no nation can really challenge me. except for like maybe like the US and China in the game. So usually I just swapped like exploitation mediumly, because what it would do is that although it would anger the world a little bit, I could buy things for 42% less. So yeah, I like it, but usually, yeah guys, overall, I would say that starting off in the game, you should start off with democracy, overall. And in the end game, you should probably swap to fascism so you can just get the exploitation bonus really quickly. But now guys, let's get to some tricks that you can do when you start off in the game. By the way guys, you also have this thing called exchange rate. It's 100% because we're starting off with the US, but if you're starting off with a country like, let's say Algeria, maybe it will be like 70%. So what you should try to do is that you should try to ally with other nations. Like for example guys, if we start off with Algeria, as we can see, we won't be an instant ally with the US. But let's say that as the US, I get a border with Algeria, okay? Let's say I just invade, like, Morocco. And after I get a border with Algeria, if I were to ally with Algeria, like, let's say I'm playing as Algeria, yeah, my exchange rate would bump up a lot if you get an alliance with someone you're bordering. However, if you were to get an alliance with, like, China, for example, as Algeria, yeah, you won't really get much of an economic boost, but you will get defense. Speaking of which, guys, now let's talk about defense. So basically, guys, as we can see, judging by how powerful we are, like, when we start off, yeah, we can see that, like, we already have a pretty powerful military, #1 in the world, and our defense power is 25th. Defense power basically just means our allies. Like, for example, guys, let me show you guys the diplomacy tab. As we can see, we're allies with a lot of nations in the world, mostly just Europe and North America. And yeah, guys, there are different alliances in the game. Like, for example, if you start off as Russia, you might be allied to, for example, like Cuba and Kazakhstan and Belarus. Or if you start off as Saudi Arabia, for example, you'll be allied with the Arab League. So yeah, basically, also if you start off in West Africa, sometimes you'll be allied to a few other West African nations. Or if you start off in South America, you'll be allied to other South American nations. Yeah, guys. So let me show you the diplomacy of South American nations with each other. Like, for example, Brazil, as we can see, has a pretty good relation in South America. Also Bolivia and Argentina. So basically, South America is kind of just, everyone's kind of just friends here. So, yeah. But anyways, guys, another important thing that you can do is that if you want to zoom into a country, like let's say, guys, for example, we were invading the UK. And let's say that the UK, what happened was that now it's just an island in the middle of nowhere. To find it, we just click on its flag and it will teleport us to it. And, I mean, yeah, I think that's mostly it with countries. Well, no, there's still quite a lot. And now, guys, let me show you what you can mostly do. Now, here's your army, okay? Your army is kind of just the main purpose of the game. Your goal, anyways, is to kind of just reach 100%, and aka just half of the world's value. Like, basically, guys, half of the world's economy. And as we can see here, we can see the percentage that people are at. We can see the GDP, the gross domestic product, the economic growth, how well our economy is going up, the GDP per capita, how expensive it is to buy weapons, the population, for example, population growth, area, military, diplomacy, political freedom, and defense power. So yeah, you can see a lot of stats. By the way, guys, the GDP is basically just showing how much money you're going to keep making, like, naturally. Like, see, guys, if I just set it on right now, or if I speed up, see, I'm making a lot of money. And yes, guys, this is the, like, money tab. And usually, guys, you're going to start off with something like this in your expenditure. I really wouldn't keep it. Usually, I like to crash social spending, then raise R&D a little bit. And I know I haven't seen many people on YouTube do this, but honestly, I like to raise military spending to like 15% most of the time. And then I like to raise the liquidity fund a little bit, and then I like to kind of just apply it. But now, guys, as we can see, for example, let's get on with like the main point of the game. Invasions, okay? So basically, guys, let's say we want to invade someone. Now, if you want to see if someone has an army, just click the military tab. Like, you can basically just see how strong someone's army is. And we can see there are already a lot of targets that don't really have any army. And an amazing one is Costa Rica and sometimes Panama. And also wait, what? The Dominican? Oh, wow. Okay, guys, so yeah, basically, as we can see, these are all the nations with 0 army, and the country that has this weakest army is Eritrea, according to the game. So basically, guys, all these nations from number 55 to number 1, they literally have no army. So yeah, you can just invade them and nothing will happen, although you might have a few rebellions depending on which nation you're invading. So yeah, they're kind of just free. Like, for example, guys, I saw in the tab Guinea, and Guinea doesn't really have an army, so let's just invade it. So usually, guys, what you want to do is this button is kind of just to locate, this button is to attack, this button is to spread, this button is to kind of just defend a position. This one, I think it's to just like loop a control or keep patrolling an area. Like, let me try, like, I think it's like this. Yeah, like that. See, it kind of just patrols an area. Your army will just keep moving around there. Or, for example, guys, this one, it makes you just move to your location, this button. And this button literally makes you attack a country. yeah, the game will automatically choose a path, but sometimes it's not very good. So if the path isn't very good, yeah, you can kind of just drag your army like this. Yeah, by just grabbing on the army. Or for example, guys, if you don't want to send your entire army, you can just like divide this. Like for example, I can make these commandos their own units, but usually you shouldn't. It's not really a good idea. And for example, guys, we can also just send our army back home with this button, and this one kind of just cancels what we're doing. Like for example, guys, let's say I'm gonna move right here. I don't want to move there anymore. I cancel it. Very easy. And by the way, guys, because we raised the military spending, yeah, guys, military spending basically just makes your army stronger. Liquidity fund makes you get more money. R&D makes you just get more R&D, right here, guys. Now, usually with R&D, you have extra tabs, okay? And let me just explain this really quickly. So basically, you have like the military tab, the economy tab, and you have the diplomacy tab. So the military tab, okay, usually this is the one that most people focus with, but usually the tab that I like to focus for the most is the diplomacy tab, because listen guys, if you do this in the game immediately, trust me, it will be really helpful. Usually guys, what I like to do with my R&D, although I know it totally gets rid of it, is buying one level of international aid, which basically just makes like everyone get far less angry at you if you invade someone, and moral high ground. The moral high ground by the year like 2080 will allow you to invade NATO. Speaking of which guys, now let's kind of just get to the point of invading. So let's just invade Equatorial Guinea. By the way guys, you also have this thingy over here, which is like the speeding up button. You can make it go really fast. Like for example guys, right now the game is going really slow. I can make it go really fast. However, I am on premium mode, so the maximum that someone can go without premium mode is this fast. But still, it's pretty fast still. So yeah, now see guys, we're invading Equatorial Guinea. Now let me show you what happens. So usually if you don't change the color, this is what the color of a nation will be if they're at war with you, and any diplomacy of under 25, it means the nation is at war with you. And yeah, sometimes there will be rebellions, and because their political freedom is less than half of ours, our diplomacy thingy, which is basically just decreasing rebels, is actually applying. And because they don't have any troops, yeah, we can just easily invade them. But by the way guys, tabs, something that I should really talk about is, for example, this is their army tab. You can see how strong their army is. These are the actions. Now we can't really do anything with Equatorial Guinea right now by giving them a peace deal, but we can easily afford it. But yeah, first let's just get rid of them. But now guys, let me show you. Now for example, with actions we can do social engineering, kind of just spend some R&D to make a nation like us more, although it'll never get us to being friends. Economic aid, we can give them some money, but it will make us be friends eventually. Diplomatic interference, I don't know why this is an option, but you can kind of just make a nation and your relation worse. Declare war, just declare war and invade the nation. Alliance treaty, you can become friends and you two will defend each other. Now you don't have to defend the nation, but the other nation's AI will be forced to defend you. Or for example guys, with the DRC we can just see troops. It really doesn't seem to be that strong, and overall it only has 7.96 million troops. So is it worth invading? Absolutely. By the way guys, the reason the DRC would be a good target is because its GDP per capita is really bad and our GDP per capita is really high. And the higher GDP per capitas make you like buy weapons for far more expensive prices. Like for example guys, let's say I want to buy some commandos. A full unit would cost 941,000 gold. And if you're wondering guys, the gold is right there, the 4.9 million. And yeah guys, now let's say I'm going to invade the DRC. So instead of it costing 941k gold, it's going to cost far less. At least if I take the DRC really quickly. Like let me show you. The cost, oh wow. Okay, it should be decreasing, but it's not decreasing. The problem is because, listen guys, as you go like farther into the game, clearly like inflation happens around the world, so things cost more, obviously, to accommodate like the fact that more and more nations are making more money. So yeah. But now guys, you see, the price kind of decreased. Because listen, if we don't do anything, yeah, the price will increase a lot. Like see guys, if I'm not doing anything, if I'm not invading anyone, the price increases a lot. But let's say I'm invading someone, the price would have probably not jumped to 961k, it would have probably just gone to like maybe 955k. And by the way guys, now it's time to talk about weapons. Like what kind of weapons you can buy. For example guys, I literally just bought some commandos right now. And what commandos allow you to do basically, okay, they do give you a lot of firepower, and your firepower is kind of just the first thingy over here, like these guys, the bullets. And okay, you can buy them a lot, like you can buy a lot of these guys, but they're really not that powerful, and usually they're actually really weak. But you can buy them a lot, so I guess they're technically good. Gunners, honestly, I kind of just see them as a more expensive commando, but the benefit that they have is that they can invade nations far quicker. Tanks, however, these are the guys that you should mostly be focusing on when you're making an army, because their defense power is amazing. Like, actually, their defense power is amazing. And basically, guys, yeah, they do cost a ridiculous amount, though, so yeah, they're not very easy to get. And then there's rocket artillery. Now, I'm not really sure what rocket artillery really does, but I think it kind of just raises the defense power a little bit. although not by much. It seems to raise this one, the little like extra bullets. So yeah, I guess that's also useful, but I don't really know much about it. So basically guys, let's just buy some gunners and tanks and rocket artillery. And now that we're waiting guys, our army is just getting stronger. And by the way guys, now let me show you what happens if you invade a nation and what am I saying? No, okay guys. So let me just show you something. So basically guys, let me just talk about the R&D really quickly. Like for example guys, with the military tab, this kind of just decreases the cost of everything. This makes your army slightly stronger by attack power. This one also makes it slightly stronger by defense. This one allows you to buy fighter jets. Basically guys, fighter jets are this, it's actually locked. You need to literally you quite literally need to spend R&D to get to this point. However, you need to spend a certain amount to get to this point, obviously. National Guard, it makes your infantry troops decrease. And basically, guys, I'm not going to spend too much, but basically, I'm not going to spend too much time with this, but you can kind of just read it. But I'll give you guys like a simple explanation. Or the economy, the first one literally just allows you to decrease the cost of all of it. Second one makes your economy like less reliant on foreign relations. So if the world hates you, or if you swap to fascism, this one is really useful. Digital economy, yeah, it kind of makes your economy rely on foreign relations, so it's not really that good. Smart taxation, it increases your expenditure, so yeah, it's pretty good. Remittance, it's sort of useful, but also not really. Welfare state increases your population growth. And yeah, the rest kind of just makes your economy more powerful in war. And this one, it's an economic stimulus bomb. Basically, guys, you allow yourself to kind of just gain more economy. This one, guys, with the diplomacy tab, this one just makes you decrease the cost of everything. This one makes the world less angry at you when you do something. And moral high ground makes you buy peace treaties a lot more cheap, but you do usually have to wait till like 2080. Blind nationalism, I mean, it seems to form militant groups. And innovative spirit, okay, well, yeah, guys, all of this, basically, I don't really know like everything about this, but honestly, yeah, you can kind of just read it. Anyways, now let's just talk about something else. So basically, guys, usually what you want to do is that you usually want to keep a pretty good relation with the world. However, there is something that you definitely shouldn't do. Whatever you do, guys, in the beginning of the game, do not invade NATO or the EU. If you invade them, everyone will go after you. Now, thankfully, we do start off in NATO and the EU, so we can just invade like one country. But if you invade more than one nation, the entire world is going to get really angry at you. Well, not the entire world, but Europe. And if Europe gets angry at you, usually what happens, guys, is that there's this feature called like isolation. And what happens, guys, is that the more nations that hate you, the less willing other nations that don't hate you will be willing to be friends with you. Like for example, guys, I had a run once where Europe declared war on me, and China, an alliance treaty, literally exploded by price. Speaking of which, guys, yeah, as we can see, we can't really afford an alliance treaty with China right now, but we now can. Like for example, guys, let's say I wasn't playing as the US, okay? Let's say I was playing as Nigeria, and let's say I invaded someone in Europe. The alliance treaty with China, let's say that it still was 699,000. The alliance treaty would jump to like 5 million. Yeah, I'm not joking, this is a real feature. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of just what it has to do with diplomacy, and I mean, I'm not really sure if there's anything else I really have to talk about. But honestly, yeah, like, usually, guys, okay, let me just tell you what to usually do in a run to win. Usually what I like to do, guys, first is I like to kind of just invade nations in Africa. Once I'm done invading Africa, usually I just wait till someone gets really weak. Like, for example, guys, I like to invade Africa because, you know, it kind of just decreases the, like, GDP per capita. And if we decrease the GDP per capita, it makes buying weapons a lot cheaper. Like, see, guys, I'm kind of just invading more and more African nations, and most of them don't even have alliances anyways. So, yeah, it's actually really easy for us to do this, and most of them don't even have very strong armies. So, yeah, usually if you're starting off with even not very strong country, you can usually kind of just obliterate Africa. And yeah, guys, I do have to warn you though that if you do invade way too many nations, the world will begin to not like you. Like, you'll kind of just be seen as an invader. Or for example, guys, yeah, let's kind of just keep going since no one's really stopping us at this point. And listen, guys, okay, here's something that I would like to show you guys really quickly. So now, after I just get rid of this nation really quickly, what I'm going to show you guys is this. So now, guys, when you're invading a nation, here's something you should always do, which is very important. Number one, check their army. Like, for example, guys, if we want to invade China, it'll be kind of stupid because we're just barely stronger than them. Check their army and check what they have. By the way, if they have a lot of commandos and gunners, usually it's quite safe to invade them because, yeah, commandos and gunners are really weak by defense. But if they have tanks, it is not safe to invade them at all. Or for example, guys, let's look at China's allies. So for example, guys, if China has a relation, or with any nation, if any nation has a relation of 75 or above, it means they'll actively defend each other. Like, let me find a nation to kind of just show this. By the way, guys, usually when I'm invading a nation, I like to pull out the diplomacy map. So as we can see, guys, Morocco is friends with the Arab League. So Let's invade Morocco, and let me show you guys how literally everyone in the Arab League is going to get angry at us. See? A lot of nations got angry at us. When it turns red, it means they're angry. But we can just pay most of them off because of our status in the world, guys. Like, basically, guys, the stronger you become in the game, the more willing nations will be to have peace deals with you. Unless you've angered the entire world. If you've angered the entire world, then no one's really going to be willing to have a peace deal with you. And, I mean, yeah, that's kind of it to invasions, really. I mean, there isn't really much strategy to it. You kind of just send your army and just see who's stronger. But let's say, guys, I decided to invade someone in Europe. If I decide to invade someone in Europe, yeah, everyone's gonna get really angry at me. By the way, guys, if you are allied, though, like, for example, guys, as we can see, Germany is allied to France, and we are allied to France. So, if we invade Germany, France won't really care, but it might cut the alliance with us, but it won't declare war. Like, see, guys, a lot of nations that we barely lost our alliance with are angry at us. And if we weren't the US, like if we were just some random nation, like Russia, for example, the peace treaties could cost literal millions. Or in other words, yeah, guys, unless you're like playing, okay, so let me just tell you guys about like alliances, okay? Unless you're playing as a nation in the EU and NATO, do not invade a nation in the EU or NATO. Well, except for one. Because listen, guys, I do have a strategy with one nation. It's Ireland, in case you're wondering. What I usually like to do, guys, when I try to like gain an economy, like if I'm starting off with an African nation, what I like to do is I like to kind of just invade Ireland in this very, it's a very like, it's a little bit cheating, but honestly it works, so I don't really care. Basically, guys, what you need to do is kind of just keep dragging your army into Ireland's territory, and its army will slowly but surely get weaker. See? Now we can look. It still has a little bit of an army, so now let's just go back. And now I think it's destroyed. Well, now it's almost destroyed. Just put ourselves there. And now decrease the speed. And now let's just see, do they have an army? Now, see, guys, if they don't have an army, run out immediately. Otherwise, everyone in Europe will notice. And now, guys, we are going to do the cheesing method. The cheesing method just gets rid of a nation instantly, if you're wondering. With this, guys, you can basically just divide your units by your army. So, yeah, kind of just divide your units. And, yeah. The nation will usually get instantly annexed if you do this, and most of the time not many nations will notice, although we have already angered the world by just directly invading Belgium. Well, no, not Belgium, I mean Germany. And did you see, guys, because we weren't allies with the UK, it wanted 22 million for a peace deal. Yeah. Or in other words, if you're going to invade someone in NATO, you either should have moral high ground, and it should be like the year 2080. I should warn you guys that moral high ground doesn't activate instantly. Yeah, you need to be in the year like 2080. Or, yeah, you should also be in the Alliance. But, by the way, guys, another thing is that the Alliance of the Arab League, usually if it doesn't have an army, like, for example, guys, let's say Saudi Arabia didn't have an army, yeah, even if you're playing as someone like the Ivory Coast, you can usually just invade Saudi Arabia quite easily if it has no army, because you know no one's really going to stop you, besides for some countries in the Arab League. But usually the Arab League is very easy to pay off anyways. By the way, guys, since more and more nations are really beginning to hate us on the world stage, yeah, let's just ally with someone. So let's just ally with India, and because the world hates us a lot, yeah, an alliance treaty with India costs a lot. And yeah, we can't even afford one with China, because you know, guys, global isolation, the mechanic that I told you guys about. So usually, guys, you don't want to invade too much, but like, yeah, if you can invade a nation, like let's say it's a nation with a lot of economy, and it's like in Africa, then yeah, sure, go for it. But if you're going to invade a nation in Europe and it doesn't have a lot of economy, well, no, I mean, like, it has a lot of economy, definitely do the cheating method, otherwise the entire world is going to isolate you. And yeah, I think that's mostly it, honestly. By the way, guys, you should actually reach 100% in economy. Like, for example, guys, although I can't really show it right now because, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to win a war against China. If we were to invade China, Japan, India, the UK, and France, and Italy, what would happen is that the game would make us win, because we would have taken half of the world's entire GDP. And yeah, guys, that's kind of just the whole video. By the way, guys, you can also see your diplomacy here, which says the diplomacy. Yeah, guys, this is kind of just the whole video, kind of just a tutorial for someone who's starting off Dummynation, from someone who is, according to the game, 6th highest rated. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and subs. That would really help the channel a ton. Comment down below if this video was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.